Hello and welcome to Fantasy Theme Part 2. Sorry it took me so long to get this out. I was moving. So we're gonna take off from where we left off from the last video where you're on the first note or the first chord that we learned. He plays that twice through and then he moves up to the 8th fret, and he plays a shape, and this shape is pretty consistent throughout this picking pattern. And so the way it starts out is on the 8th fret, you pretty much bar it, and then you take your middle finger and put that on the 9th fret of the 3rd string. You take your ring finger and put that on the 10th fret of the 4th string, and then you take your pinky and put that on the 10th fret of the 2nd string. And it makes that beautiful chord. And so what we're gonna do is kind of modify our picking pattern here. And so I'm just gonna play it first really quickly and then break it down for you. And so the way we're gonna start that is you start on the 3rd string, and then you take it down to the 5th string, and you kind of wave back down. So you go 3rd string, 5th string, 4th string, 2nd string. And then you kind of repeat that pattern, but going back up to the 5th string. So after that, you play between the 5th and the 3rd string. So that's our first movement. In our second movement, you continue. And then our third movement, you play between the 5th and the 3rd string. And then you kind of repeat the sequence. And that's sort of the picking pattern throughout this entire thing. And what you're gonna do is switch strings and play different strings based on the chord you're playing. So we're gonna keep this same exact shape. And you might wanna get comfortable with that picking pattern first. If you're not, then you might wanna pause this video and head back and get comfortable with it first, and then move on to the chords. So that's the first chord and plucking pattern that we learned. And what we're gonna do is basically keep the same exact shape, but shift it around on the fretboard. So the second shape he does is on the 5th fret. You're just gonna move it down, but you're gonna keep the same exact shape. So we're gonna switch on the 4th fret. We're gonna switch on the 4th string and then move up to the 2nd string or the 3rd string. So I'm gonna play that. It's gonna make a little bit more sense, and the tab is gonna be there to help you. So the entry note or the entry string for this first chord is the 3rd string. That's where we start every time we come into it. And so when you go down to the 5th fret, it's actually the 2nd string, and you don't even pluck the 3rd string. So it's the same it's the same pattern essentially, except instead of using the 3rd string now, we're gonna use the 2nd string. And then we're gonna use the high E string as well. So instead of using these two middle strings, we're using the top strings. Right, and it's the same thing. We end on that first note that we came into, and then hit the entry note of our first chord, which is on the 3rd string. Right, and we're not using the high E string, we're going back into those middle strings that we've been using. So each chord has its assigned pattern, essentially. And so this next chord is pretty easy. You just, same shape, just take it all the way down to the 3rd fret and it's the same exact plucking pattern as the first chord. And this is where it starts to change. So we go down and we play these for one riff. We go down to the 7th fret, and instead of playing that same exact shape, actually, you're gonna take your middle finger and put it on the 2nd fret, put it on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and then you're gonna keep your ring finger on the 9th fret of the 4th string. Sorry, I am having a hard time counting. And so what we're gonna do is play the exact same pattern we've been playing, but we're gonna play it one time through. And we're gonna shift right down to the 5th fret, and you're gonna take your middle finger and put it on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and take your ring finger and put it on the 6th fret of the 2nd string, and do the same exact pattern. And you only do those once. And if you hear it in the song, you're just going down the scale essentially. You're just following this note right here. So you start up here, you go down here, you go down some more, right? So you're just following that note down the scale. And so then after you get on the 5th fret, you're gonna stay there and you're gonna switch back to a chord that's kind of familiar, that we kind of just played. You're gonna put your middle finger down on the 6th fret of the 2nd string, and take your ring finger and put that on the 7th fret of the 4th string. And so essentially, like I said, we're playing the same exact pattern, except we're gonna substitute a high E string in there. So we're gonna start off normally like we do, just like that. So when you go down to your 5th string, after going through our initial pattern, you're gonna go back up to the high E string this time. And then we go down to a chord that's familiar from part 1 that he uses in the initial intro of the song. So that's how he walks right back into it. And so to walk you through it, the tab is down there to really help. If I say something that does not look like the tab, I'm probably wrong, because I'm doing this from my mind's eye, which is very distorted. And so what I like to do is just bar it and then use my middle finger to do the 4th string on the, do the 4th fret on the 3rd string. And so essentially we do a different pattern in that we, instead of going and using the 5th string, we use the 6th string. And essentially, and use the tab, because if I say something wrong, the tab is probably right. We go and start with our 3rd string, and then we go down to our low E string, then to our 4th string, and then to our 2nd string. And then we do the same thing, but instead of doing our 2nd string for the last note, we do the 3rd string. And that's kind of a pattern that we repeat. So, and then instead of going and, like I said, using our 5th string, we go back up to our 6th string and then hit the high E string. So to play that back. And so then we go back and kind of unravel or do the same thing we kind of just did in the first iteration of this. So we play the exact same thing we played a moment ago. We play low E string to 4 to 2, and then low E string to 4 to 3. So to play it all together, and then you wait a beat, and this is when you play the original tune to the intro that we're used to.